In this video today, we're going to go over how you would create a cycle count program, which means how do you establish the ABC codes that your program will use to both set the frequency and the dates with which you will conduct the actual counts of each part. Let's take a look over in Excel to see how we do this. So here we are looking at our actual spreadsheet that we've already done quite a bit of work on, but just to kind of give you the size of the part numbers that we're looking at over here, we have 5,000 different parts in our hypothetical example. Now what we've done here is that we have decided that we're going to do our ABC coding based on the number of parts that are shipped or consumed. We have assigned or retrieved what the last 12 months of shipments and consumption is by part number, which is what's in this column here. So then we have sorted them in descending order based on their consumption all the way down to the bottom. The smallest one is only 44 units. So in our program, we have determined a few things that are important to figure out. First is that we figured out that we could conduct about 12,500 counts a year. So given our manpower and the amount of time that we're going to allocate to the cycle counting program. Now we deemed that we wanted to count our A parts, which are the most critical parts, 8 times per year. And we decided that we wanted to count our B parts 4 times a year, once a quarter. And then our C parts we're going to count once a year. So we went through and we allocated 500 items to the A category. So times 8 times a year. So that means we're going to be counting the A items 4,000 times, or at least there's going to be 4,000 counts. Each part will be counted 8 times. Relative to the B's, we allocated 1,250 parts to the B category. So that's another 5,000 counts we're going to have to conduct during the year. And then that leaves the remainder to the C category, which is 3,250. So you can see this gets us to 12,250 counts, which is pretty close to our targeted 12,480. So here we're looking at the A parts. And basically what I've done is start with the parts plan over here and just copy and paste over here the initial 500 A parts. And then all I did was copy that and then paste that another 7 times so that I end up with the 4,000 counts that we're going to do of the A parts during the year. So each one of these A parts is on here 8 times. I've just copy and pasted it 8 times onto the sheet because I'm going to assign a date to each one of these here in just a minute. Here are the B parts. The same process with the B parts. I just copied over the initial list of 1,250 B parts and then I pasted that 3 more times so that I end up with the 5,000 different counts we're going to do with the B parts. And then since we're only counting the C parts 1 time, I just have all the C parts here in one sheet. No need to repaste them. So the next step, I took the parts on the A parts, B parts, and C parts tabs and just consolidated them onto one tab called All Parts. And I converted this into a table. If you don't know how to convert or create a table, all you do is you just highlight the area that you want to convert into a table with the titles at the top and go to Insert and hit Table. This is grayed out because I've already created a table. But that's pretty much what's on the Alt Parts tab. The next one is a little bit more complicated. Basically, the background is that I'm going to want a serial number, an integer, for every day that the company is going to be doing cycle count sounds. So the way that I did this was to take all 365 days in 2023, which are here, Then I came up with what the day was of the week, because I'm only going to be doing cycle counts on Monday through Friday. And then I looked at the days that were going to be vacation days, such as Christmas and 4th of July and whatever. And I created this column here. So if it's a normal day when they're going to be doing cycle counting, it's called available. If it's either a Saturday, Sunday, or holiday, it's called exempt. So then I created this next column where it would either put a 0 if it's exempt or a 1 if it's available. So then next I did this column here, which just is basically summing this column, but it's assigning, it's just assigning a sequential number for each one of the days that are an available cycle count day. And then here's the vertical lookup date. So what happens is that I'm going to use a random number generator here in a minute on my parts list. So it's going to select a number in between 1 and whatever the end of this list was, which is 253. So there's 253 days when we're going to be doing cycle counts. And I'm going to use this vertical lookup column here, and I'll show you here in a second, but basically on the other sheet we're going to create a formula that picks a random number between 1 and 253, and then it uses that random number to come over here and look up the date. So I'll show you that here next. We're back at the all parts worksheet down here, and you can see that I've added 2 columns, column D and column E. Column D here, I'm just using this random between function to generate a day between 1 and 253, which, as you recall, 253 is the number of days that we're going to be performing cycle counts. So what I want to do is I want to assign each count, because over here I have the 12,250 counts. I want to assign a day to each one of them. So the way that I'm doing that is using this random function to get an index, and then I'm using over here in this next column, I'm using the vertical lookup, looking back over at the calendar worksheet to figure out what date equates to that index here. So one little tricky thing here is that every time you edit a cell or do something, you're going to redo the whole date assignments. But let's take a look here, and we're going to go and turn off the automatic calculation for a bit. And then over here, let's look at the calendar. So over here in the calendar, you can see that on January 6th, which is a Friday, that is supposed to be a day that we are going to be doing cycle counts. And that has the index of number 4. So if I go over here to my all parts and I filter for the number 4, you can see all these part counts have been assigned January 6th, which is what I wanted it to do. You can see over here on my calendar that the way that I did this was numbering this, and I ignore these days on Saturdays and Sundays. And you can see that the vertical lookup, when it's passing down through here, it just picks up the first number that equals it and gets that date, and it ignores these two. So that's one little convenient function. So what I did was I ran those numbers, and then I froze them, or I should say I took this information and I did a copy paste values into my operating plan. So here's my operating plan, and I have my A, B, and C codes are all fixed, and I have sorted the list here by index date by this column, so that I have the first dates, and I can start to kind of check some of these numbers to see if I'm going to have any issues, because we did just kind of randomly assign these dates, and they may or they may not be perfect. But I mean, kind of as a first level check, you can look here and see that, the dates are pretty flat. You can see that here on the A's, I have my 4,000 counts, and on B's, I have my 5,000, and on my C's, I have my 32, and this is showing you how many of which one is in each one of those dates. But I kind of took it another step further where I created a pivot table off of this same data to see if there were any issues. And I mean, if you go down through here, you will see issues, and then you have to decide if you want to fix these issues. Like, for example, we have this one. This is going to be an A part because it's got 8 cycle counts, but we're doing 3 cycle counts in September or in December. So you may want to change that. So you have to decide if you want to go through here and if there's some level of inconsistency. For example, you probably don't want to cycle count this 4 times in the month of July. You would just go to the operating plan. You would look at this part. So this is 4933, and you could go over here. You could do a filter on part 4933. So there's our part, and you can see here it's got the 4 cycle counts in the one date. So you could just move that around by hand if you didn't. Okay, so now I went through and I updated all these dates so that I didn't have a bunch of cycle counts all bunched up in the month of July as we originally had. So now, once you've gone through and reviewed all that, then basically you now have a cycle count plan that you can hand off to your warehouse personnel, and you can sort it by dates. You can give it to them by month or give them the entire year, but this is the entire 1-year cycle count plan with all the daily counts by part for the 15,250 counts. And that's the beginning of your cycle count program.